If you've been paying attention to the political map across the upper Midwest over the last few cycles, you know that the traditional assumptions about the Rust Belt are completely breaking down. For decades, states like Wisconsin and Minnesota were treated by the political establishment as reliable, untouchable components of a blue wall. But as we look at the shifting demographics, economic realities, and the political trends shaping this cycle, the question isn't just whether these states are in play, it's whether the ground has shifted enough to turn them red. To understand why Wisconsin and Minnesota are moving, you have to look at what has happened to the working class communities across the region. For generations, working families in manufacturing hubs, mining towns, and agriculture, agricultural counties trusted National Party leadership to protect their livelihoods, their industries, and their values. Instead, they watched decades of globalist trade policies, radical environmental mandates, and regulatory overreach hollow out their local economies. The political establishment took these voters for granted, assuming they had nowhere else to go. But those voters woke up and they realized that the policies coming out of Washington and state capitals were actively hostile to their way of life. Let's look at Wisconsin first. Wisconsin has become ground zero for the battle over the American heartland. It is a state split right down the middle, where elections are decided by razor thin margins. But the real story in Wisconsin is the deepening divide between urban centers like Milwaukee and Madison and the working class rural and suburban counties that surround them. The shift in places like the Fox Valley and rural agricultural districts shows a population that is exhausted by cultural radicalism and economic mismanagement. Working class Wisconsinites are looking at high inflation, energy costs, and the decline of local manufacturing, and they're demanding accountability. Then let's look at Minnesota, a state that hasn't voted red in a presidential election in over 50 years. On paper, the establishment considers Minnesota off limits. But under the surface, the structural shifts tell a very different story. Outside the Minneapolis, St. Paul metro, the Iron Range and greater Minnesota have seen a massive realignment. Rural and working class Minnesotans are rejecting the extreme policies pushed by urban politicians who seem completely detached from the daily realities of farming, mining, and small business ownership. When local governments prioritize partisan social agendas over public safety, reliable energy, and economic survival, voters in the heartland start looking for an alternative. What we're witnessing across the entire Rust Belt isn't a random political blip. It's a fundamental realignment based on self preservation and shared values. Working class families, union workers, farmers, and small town citizens are realizing that the old party labels don't mean what they used to. They want leaders who respect human dignity, protect local jobs, defend basic freedoms, and put the interests of American workers first. Whether Wisconsin and Minnesota ultimately flip red this cycle or not, the message coming out of the Rust Belt is crystal clear. The heartland will no longer be taken for granted, and the blue wall is cracking from the inside out. Check us out at titdusa.com. Stand firm on the truth, keep your eyes open, and don't let anyone tell you your voice doesn't matter. I'll see you next time.